Well, you're right on time for Africa Focus. Good afternoon from where you're watching us from. My name is Joel Church and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. We have a lot in line for you and these are our top stories. The number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Africa has reached more than 4 million according to the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Ethiopia Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed seeks to de-escalate tensions on Sudan border. Black is beautiful, skin whitening finds new opponents in Gambia. Well, today we begin our focus on the COVID-19 pandemic, and the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Africa has reached 4.1 million. According to the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Africa CDC, which is the specialized healthcare agency of the African Union, has said the death toll related to the pandemic registered at 109,724, while 3,676,638 patients across the continent have recovered from the disease. In South Africa, 52,082 patients have died of COVID-19, the most among African countries, followed by Egypt at 11,557 and Morocco at 8,763. That is according to the Africa CDC. According to the agency, 9 African countries have so far reported more than 100,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases, with the number in South Africa topping 1 million. Meanwhile, mechatronic engineer Mohamed El Katoumi tests a self-funded prototype for a remote-controlled robot to assist physicians in running tests on suspected COVID-19 patients in a bid to limit human exposure to disease carriers at a private hospital in Egypt's Nile Delta city of Tanta.
This robot is especially designed to help the medical staff during COVID-19 times. It is a medical robot capable of multitasks. It can deal with patients in their beds, chest scans, fever screening, and face mask detection.
يعمل fever screening أو يشوف face mask detection. طور فيه كمان ال AI.
The artificial intelligence in this robot has been developed to perform PCR swab tests with ease and without causing pain.
بدون وجع يعني. الروبوت قبل ما بيبدأ إن هو يشتغل أو ينزل الخدمة بيبدأ إن هو
Before starting its mission, the robot receives training to improve its AI. The trainings are done by a specialist doctor. The artificial intelligence in these trainings act like a human doctor.
بيبقى بالضبط ال AI كأنه بيعمل نفس اللي بيعمله البشري.
التجربة مفيدة جدا للبشرية طبعا. هي بتقريبا
This trial is very special. It almost prevents any contact between the medical staff and suspected infected people. It can only happen with the robot.
الإنسان الآلي أو الروبوت الكيرا.
Away from that, protesters blocked a highway outside the northwest Nigerian city of Kaduna to demand the release of kidnapped students. Several dozens protesters barricaded the road outside the Federal College of Forestry Mechanization on the city's outskirts, disrupting traffic. Wailing mothers held protest of their children sat on the highway and pleaded for their rescue. They pushed a tractor belonging to the college along the highway to symbolize the closure of academic activities at the school. Meanwhile, gunmen are still holding 39 college students who were seized from hostels in a raid on March 11. The military rescued 180 other students and staff.
Looking at this school alone, you should know that it is poor people that are here. Poor people's children that are here. If any big man children should be here, should go to school. It's either they go to private university or they go to abroad.
Because tomorrow they will be all, and these children will be the one to take over. Yes. Father, we beg on you. We have cried enough. Yes, Lord. We have called on you. These our children are released. Amen. Our neighbor students are released. Amen. Whoever is in authority that is not doing what he's supposed to do, Father, this night, that person will not have a good sleep. Amen.
Let's now focus on some history. Tunisia won plaudits for its democratic transition, its free elections, a new liberal constitution after its 2011 revolution. The popular uprising put an end to a police state and established freedom of expression that was unprecedented in the North African country. But a decade later, in the face of limited reforms to the security and judicial systems, activists say at the risk of arrest places a sword over Damocles over their heads.
The police took me from the house. They took my laptop and my phone. They took me directly to the police station and then directly to jail with a charge of distributing peace, just for a Facebook status. At my trial, the case was dismissed. To this day, my things are still with them. Life for a young person in Tunisia is about trying to avoid the police as much as possible. There is no real freedom. I got arrested because of a status. We are supposed to have freedom of expression. There are people who have been arrested in their homes. So no, we don't feel safe. We are not free in our country. The first enemy of the youth is the way the police deals with them.
We were in a private space. We certainly discussed the police unions, arrests, and so on. This is a subject that is close to our hearts and that interests us. In a private space, it's our right to express our opinions and about this. When we were arrested and taken to the police station, they were talking about insults against the police unions.
A turn of the screw or a return of the crank? I think it's no longer possible in Tunisia, at least not for the moment. But let's say there's a tendency for those who resist reform to reposition themselves as the main actor in the national dynamic.
Dans la dynamique nationale,
Aujourd'hui, en 2021, il y a des erreurs qui se sont passées.
Today in 2021, there are mistakes that have been made over the years since 2011. There are things that have not been built. There are laws that have not been passed and reforms that have not been carried out. This is a responsibility that we must all face. We have to say to ourselves today in 2021, what is the responsibility of each of us to really make these hopes come true?
Pour vraiment concrétiser ces espoirs. Bien sûr qu'on est en train d'évoluer.
It is not a policy of repression. Of course, we are evolving in the same direction of freedoms and rights. Because if you have contact with the magistrates, how they are participating, the evolution of the jurisprudence. Unfortunately, the technical means are a bit of hindrance to access all this evolution. The before and after references do not give this image of evolution. But of course, we are evolving to have a democratic state.
À donner cette image d'évolution, mais bien sûr qu'on est en train d'évoluer pour avoir un État démocratique.
On to other news, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says his country does not want war with Sudan as tensions over a contested region along their border sparks fear of border conflict. The border quarrel is over Al-Fashaka, which is an agricultural area sandwiched between two rivers where Ethiopia's northern Amhara and Tigray regions meet Sudan's eastern Gedaref state. He stressed later that Ethiopia did not want war with their neighbor over these decades-old long territorial dispute, describing Sudan as a brotherly country whose people loved Ethiopia.
Let's solve this with talks and discussions. Even though our families are displaced, their farms and their houses are burned down, we are the victims. Despite this, we are saying we don't want war.
A Chadian presidential candidate, Albert Pahimi, who was also the prime minister between 2016 and 2018, officially launches his election campaign in the capital, N'Djamena. Presidential candidate on April 11th in Chad, Albert Pahimi, promised if he wins, outgoing Idriss Deby Itno are almost certain of being re-elected to continue to live in his country in all tranquility.
Lorsque dans chaque village,
There's peace when in every village thousands of compatriots kill each other in intercommunal conflicts. The latest news, as you know, comes from Bata. Can we tell these villagers of Bata, whose houses are burned, whose relatives are murdered, can we tell them that Chad is at peace?
Des parents assassinés, est-ce qu'on peut leur dire que le Tchad est en paix? Pouvons-nous dire vraiment
Can we really say to the Chadians whose children are kidnapped for ransom and who are in the bush, they lose their lives, they lose their means of subsistence to pay the criminals who are in the bush, and the state is unable to find them? Is this peace? In Chad in 2021, I tell you, my dear compatriots, Marshal Idris Deby Itno will be defeated at the polls and nothing will happen.
Well, time to take a breather. Stay with us here on Africa Focus. Still to come. A section of youth in Kibera slums, Nairobi, have come up with a special paint initiative to cool their roofs. Welcome back to Africa Focus. My name is Joel Church and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Moving on, it is estimated that approximately 5,000 people die in Kenya, or rather in the Kenyan slums every year. Out of these, about 1,500 deaths are attributed to extreme heat experienced in these informal settlements. Following the rise in deaths in slums due to a frequent climate change experienced across the globe, a section of youth in Kibera slums have come up with a special paint initiative to cool their roofs. Robert Uma reports.
Heat exposure has become a global threat to human health and life, with increasing temperatures and frequency of extreme heat events, with immediate casualties being the slum dwellers, including Kibra, Kangemi, Mathare, Dandora, among others. Necessity is the mother of invention, as was the case for Gushie Gadogo, who suffered the brunt of excess heat that he experienced in these houses here, that, like many other slums, are mainly constructed with iron sheets.
The temperatures here in Kibera and Mathare and Mukuru, when you compare with the weather station here in Dagoretti, they were around 2.6 degrees to 4.8 degrees higher. Most of the carbon gases, they are just within the air, and that creates warmer temperatures.
It is after this that Gushie mobilized a section of youths from various slums, and after sharing with them the new invention and discovery, they took the initiative upon themselves to cool the slum roofs to save lives for free.
At times like this, you see the temperature is very high, and housing at Kibera, they are so close to an extent that whatever affects you affects the neighbors.
The program, dubbed Cool Roof Technology, is aimed at changing the death curve, which is on the rise in major slums in the country, with the high heat stretch affecting mostly children and the elderly.
Uncoated roof can go up to around 60 degrees centigrade, but once you coat and you put the same data logger on top of the top of the roof, it drops to around 32 or even 30.
Before ipakwe, in the afternoons kulikuwa na joto mingi sana, so ilikuwa ngumu sana. But for now, at least the environment iko cool kidogo.
You may ask, how is the paint unique?
The Cool Roof product that we are using, which has got a very high reflectance level, where when the heat comes, it's reflected back to the atmosphere.
Though at first the project faced resistance from people including the area district commissioner, with time it was embraced, and now his office is among the beneficiaries of the Cool Roof technology. Gathongo and his team are now calling on the government to embrace this simple means to be able to save lives of those living in shanty settlements both in Nairobi and other parts of the country.
So if we can be able to use this passive, we'll be able to give comfortable living and working spaces, reduce chances of heat stress and sicknesses like heat exhaustion, heat stroke, heat rashes, on and so forth, and also make the environment cooler.
According to research that has been conducted in most informal settlements in the world, Heat from the sun causes adverse effects to those living in such settlements, but the cooling effect technology is one step to save the world. Robert Ouma, Switch TV.
As members of Libya's petroleum facilities guard take part in a defense exercise near the town of Bir al-Ghanam, about 100 kilometers southwest of Libya's capital Tripoli. Libya's petroleum facilities guard an oil company rolled out a training program at a shooting range in western Libya for its personnel against possible attacks on oil facilities. This training is carried out at advanced levels for 3 months to increase the efficiency of the personnel of the petroleum facilities guard. Libya's oil facilities have been subjected to terrorism and vandalism in the past few years, which undermines the production and export of oil, the country's main source of income.
We must fight and defend. And that's why we held this training to teach the members how to shoot and stand guard, so they can protect the oil installations that belong to the petroleum facilities guard and to the Libyan people.
Still a focus in that particular country, the Eastern administration officially hands over power to a new executive that is hoped to unify the war-torn country and steers it towards election late this year in Libya's second city of Benghazi. The Government of National Unity, selected through a UN-supported process, is the latest internationally backed bid to end a decade of chaos in the North African nation and unite rival administration. Led by interim Prime Minister Abdul Hamid, the GNU replaces both the Tripoli-based government of national accord and a parallel cabinet headquartered in the one of the region are not recognized by the international community. The interim executive faces the daunting challenges to unify the country's institutions, end a decade of fighting marked by international interference, and prepare for elections on December 24th. Black is beautiful. Skin whitening finds a new opponents in concepts of beauty vary all over the world, and while people apply products to darken their face or rather their skin, others buy cream to encourage a lighter complexion. In Gambia, a new campaign has been set up to counter the growing popularity of such lightening products and instead promote natural beauty, whatever the color.
Gambian lawmakers rejected a government proposal to lift a ban on skin lightening products, which are widely used across Africa. Skin lightening is also practiced in other parts of the world, such as South Asia and the Middle East, and is particularly popular among women. But it is controversial, with many people arguing that the phenomenon is a toxic legacy of colonialism and that the bleaching agents used to lighten skin pose health risks. Yahya Jammeh, who for 22 years ruled the tiny West African state with an iron fist, banned the practice in 1996. The former president fled the Gambia in 2017 after losing presidential elections to a relative unknown, Adama Barrow. Barrow's government sought to lift the skin bleaching ban last year, arguing that it discriminated against women. Justice Minister Dadwa Jallow also argued that criminalizing people for using cosmetic products was an unfair punishment. However, recently several lawmakers argued in favor of maintaining the ban, citing health or religious reasons. 23 MPs voted to uphold the ban, with 10 voting to repeal it. Other MPs were either not present in the chamber or abstained from voting. Reporting for Switch TV, my name is Harriet Chimea.
Away from that, Mali's interim Prime Minister Mokhtar has visited the town of Kona in a central region regularly hit by jihadist attacks to inaugurate a new fishing port and a new military camp. The visit sought to show optimism in a town that has become a beacon of hope and a symbol of resistance in war-torn central Mali. Speaking from the town, the town of Mopti, ahead of the visit, Mokhtar said the success of the defense forces should not be measured by the number of terrorists neutralized, but rather by the number of villages rescued and defended and an increased sense of security among civilians.
Afin que nous puissions apporter une réponse durable.
In order to provide a sustainable response to the crisis in the center of our country, we must materialize two principles through concrete actions. The first principle is the main principle of national solidarity. This solidarity must be the first bulwark and the first response to the tragedy that is affecting our fellow citizens in the central regions. This national solidarity must be shown at all levels.
Nos concitoyens des régions du centre. Cette solidarité nationale doit se manifester à tous les niveaux. Cohésion sociale.
Social cohesion is what most characterizes our societies and our country. This is why I'm very attentive when it comes to local agreements signed between the communities, resulting from intra- and inter-community dialogue. I therefore encourage the Minister of National Reconciliation to continue his efforts in this direction, and I encourage him to involve other departments. The protection of civilians must remain at the heart of our action in crisis or crisis regions. Today, it's only the town of Kona where you can feel a bit of peace. Now in the rest of the commune and the region, and especially the Delta, there is really no security. There is nothing at all. Kona has a resilient population that since 2013 has not hesitated to fend for itself, men and women alike. Kona is one of the main fishing ports in the region. Everyone knows it since the time of the colonists. Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Burkina, everywhere, everyone used to come to Kona to buy fish.
Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Burkina, partout, tout le monde venait se ravitailler en.
Well, that's all here on Africa Focus today, but keep the conversation going on our social media platforms at CCTV Kenya, Joel Chacha M on Twitter, as well on Facebook, CCTV Kenya and Joel Chacha. My producer has been Harriet Chimea, director Julie Wairimu, and my name is Joel Chacha, and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Until next time, do you have a safe and great weekend.